What's up? My name's Anthony Ferraro. I'm 26 years old. I'm from Spring Lake, New Jersey. I'm a professional athlete, a motivational speaker, a musician, and I was also born blind. I was born with Leber's congenital amaurosis, which is LCA for short. It's a degenerative eye condition. It has to do with the retina and a lot more scientific stuff that I don't really understand. But basically, when I was born, I had a little bit better of sight. Like, not good sight at all, but I could see, like, I remember seeing people and things like that. And, like, it was always blurred out and stuff, but I was able to see, like, figures and different stuff like that way more clearer than now. I just have light perception and like can see, shadows of things in the perfect daylight, like in natural lighting. Hello, Delta. This is my dog, Delta. And so I'm the youngest of five, and I grew up in this small beach town where I grew up skateboarding, surfing, riding bikes until I started hitting parked cars, and then my mom told me, it's time to get off the bike, and then I learned about tandem bicycles and like learned about like all ways I can learn to do things and still be somewhat safe and still live my life and like push past these obstacles I ran into. So I started by going to a school in Philadelphia. So my parents, the main mission was it was to find me a good education. So to learn Braille and to be able to learn assistive technology and just all the things that were accessible out there, so I can mainstream into the real world, like sighted world, when I go to school and everything after that. So I went to school in Philadelphia called St. Lucie Day School for the Blind, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me because I would, at first I stayed in an apartment with my mom for until like second grade. We'd have to go to Philly and stay there during the week so I'd be able to go to school, and then I got transportation from Jersey to Philly every day after that. And um, St. Lucy's taught me they gave me all the tools I needed to be able to go to school in the sighted world and just like, integrate into everything with confidence. And it was great. Like St. Lucy's was awesome because it was other blind people I was around, and it was just normal. Like blindness wasn't even a thing. It didn't bother me that I was blind really. And then I had to transfer to I finally got to transfer to the public school that in the town I grew up in, and it was really weird for me because I was the only blind person, and I remember feeling super anxious and like just overwhelmed, kind of just wanting to fit in and be a normal kid, but not not being like everyone else. Like I'm blind, so that was really hard for me to accept. Like I would try to hide my blindness so much. I wouldn't use my cane, and I clearly needed it. I would walk around really slow, hunched over, and try and see things. And just took me a lot of time, and I was constantly feeling this anxiety. So that at the same time, I found wrestling, which my older brother Oliver is a great wrestler, and I started doing that, and I was once again the only blind person, and the adaptation that was made was I had to stay in constant contact. So like if we broke apart, I wouldn't know where the opponent was, so we would the referee would blow the whistle and we'd go back to the center. So I fell in love with that and like kind of put all my frustration into wrestling as well. And at the time, like at first I was really bad. I went, I was awful in seventh grade when I started, and then I started going to a club and doing all the extra work I needed to do and put in all these extra hours and finally started doing well. And when in, sorry, I lost my spot real quick. Uh,
Eighth grade wrestling.
so after, so I put all my frustration into wrestling, and I would always be labeled as like the blind wrestler, all these things and all these articles, and like that would really bother me because once again, like I was just trying to fit in and be like everyone else. But then I started getting these messages from people saying like, it's so inspirational seeing what you do every day, not making excuses, just pushing through and doing all this stuff. And it really hit me kind of like, I'd be selfish to not accept my blindness and start to be comfortable with it because I could help so many other people. And I think around that time I started to, use my cane a little more, or just accept the fact that I was blind and identify that I was blind. And it really gave me this sense of freedom and independence. And then, my high school career, my older brother and his friend Chris Sikorsky, they made a whole feature-length documentary about my wrestling career, being blind and pushing past obstacles, called A Shot in the Dark. And when that was released, the Olympic Committee saw this, the United States Olympic Committee, and reached out and asked if I would consider training judo for the Paralympics and for Tokyo. And I jumped on that opportunity. I was like, this is once in a lifetime. And I immediately, started doing that. And this is about 5 years ago. I got hurt right before the Tokyo Games, so I wasn't able to qualify and go. I was really close, but after that, I'm now training for the 2024 games for Paris, and I'm also a musician. I play guitar and create a bunch of content with my wife, Kelly. She's amazing, and we do all this like videos and trying to inspire others and help as many people as we can. There's stuff like I do skateboarding, judo, and surfing, and just a bunch of music, and speak to a bunch of groups and events, and just try and, like I said, help as many people as I can. But at the end of the day, if I help one person, it's a success in my life. So thanks so much for listening to my journey of sight loss, and I hope it helps. And if you get one thing, it's be comfortable with yourself and who you are, and start to accept yourself, and really like use the tools that are out there for you. Like the cane, once I accepted that, my life just opened a whole new world for me. So one love, and have a great one.